Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's explainer, we're taking those foundational coding skills and turning them into a polished, professional presentation. We're going to be structuring a web developer portfolio, and we're really zoning in on the power of nested HTML lists and parent-child relationships. Because let's be honest, how you organize your information under the hood is absolutely just as important as how it looks on the screen. Let's get your skills noticed. Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the HTML family tree, move into creating HTML lists, tackle nesting list items, look at using placeholder text, and finally, we'll build out the education section.
All right, Section 1, the HTML family tree. In understanding the DOM hierarchy, let's dive right in.
So to really master nesting, we first have to understand the underlying structure of a web page. HTML relies heavily on this concept of a family tree to map out the DOM, or the document object model. Think of the DOM as the invisible skeleton of your website, literally the architectural bedrock of the internet. Within this skeleton, every single HTML element on your page has a specific structural relationship to the elements around it. An element can be a parent, a child, or a sibling. A parent wraps around other elements. The elements inside it, those are its children. And elements that sit right next to each other, totally enclosed inside the exact same parent, are siblings. Simple as that.
Okay, let's actually visualize this with your standard HTML document boilerplate. The HTML element at the top, that's the root. It is the ultimate parent enclosing the entire page. Inside of it, we have the head and the body tags. Because they are completely enclosed by that HTML tag, they're its children. And since the head and body sit side by side right next to each other within that root tag, yep, you guessed it, they are siblings. Getting a solid grip on this relative relationship is the absolute key to writing clean, semantic code.
Moving right along to Section 2, creating HTML lists and organizing that web content.
Lists are basically everywhere on the web, right? They are incredibly useful for breaking content down into smaller, readable chunks. Now, you have two main tools at your disposal here. First up, unordered lists. We create these with the UL tag, and they display items using bullet points. You're going to use these when the hierarchy or the exact order of the items doesn't really matter, like if you're just listing off all the programming languages you know. On the flip side, we have ordered lists, which use the OL tag. These display items with sequential numbers or letters. These are strictly for when sequence matters, like listing out priorities, rankings, or the precise step-by-step process required to deploy a website.
Take a look at this HTML5 cheat sheet. I just love the sheer simplicity of the syntax here. Whether you're building an ordered list or an unordered list, they both rely on the exact same child element, the LI tag, or list item. You literally just pop your LI tags inside whichever parent list tag you chose. Now, the cheat sheet also highlights the description list, or DL, which is fantastic for listing out terms and their definitions. But for the portfolio structure we're building today, we're going to focus primarily on really mastering those UL and OL tags.
All right, Section 3, nesting list items. This is where we put lists inside of lists.
Often, just one level of organization isn't quite enough to get the job done. Sometimes you need lists inside of other lists. We call this nesting. And here is the exact step-by-step procedure to pull this off safely without breaking your code. Step 1. Create your main parent list, let's say an unordered list, UL. Step 2. Add your standard list item, your LI child. But Step 3, and pay attention here because this is where a lot of beginners get tripped up, to create a sublist, you have to open your new OL tag inside that LI tag before you close it. The entire sublist has to be fully contained within that specific list item.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that relationships in HTML are relative. A list item is a child to the main list that wraps around it, sure, but the second you nest a brand new list inside of that item, well, that child list item suddenly becomes a parent itself to the new sublist. It's a hierarchy. Maintaining that strict, clean parent-child relationship is exactly what ensures your page is going to render perfectly across every single browser out there. Let's jump to Section 4, using placeholder text. Time to design before we worry about the content. I am almost positive you've seen this exact phrase before. Lorem ipsum dolor sit. It looks like some fancy Latin, but it's actually scrambled text from a philosopher way back in 45 BC. Using this specific snippet is a totally standard industry practice for developers and designers when they're first laying out a page's structure.
We call this placeholder text. When you're building out complex nested lists, you really shouldn't get bogged down trying to remember exactly what year you took some specific college course.
Using placeholder text lets us perfect our nested layout, double-check our CSS styling, and make sure our HTML semantics are absolutely flawless, all completely independent of whatever the final resume copy ends up being.
Okay, Section 5, Building the Education section. Let's get to the practical portfolio application. When a tech recruiter looks at your portfolio, they want information presented clearly, and they want it hierarchical. Here's a wireframe concept for how we might present your education section. We want a simple bulleted list for your main degrees. Then, nested right under each degree, we want a numbered list showing the specific coursework or specializations you completed for that particular degree. In this setup, the main degree acts as the parent item, and those specific courses tucked underneath act as the nested children. Look at how beautifully our visual layout maps directly to our semantic HTML here. You start with a parent UL for the overarching education section. You use an LI for your main degree, and then, crucially, before closing it, you nest your OL for the specific classes right inside it, filling it with that lorem ipsum placeholder text for now. This clean, purely semantic parent-child structure, this is exactly what search engines and screen readers love. And frankly, it's exactly the kind of professional, meticulous coding that's going to help you land the job.
So you now have a perfectly structured, nested list for your education section, built entirely with clean HTML5 semantics. Awesome job. But here is my final challenge to you. How are you going to take these exact same parent-child nesting techniques and apply them to the next section of your portfolio? Your work experience section is waiting, and the structure is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, you guys. Keep structuring, keep nesting, and I will catch you in the next one.